Hi, Brian Fuller with EE Times here in Fontana, California at the MAV-TV 500. We've spent the last 2 days here as part of the Little Fuse Speed to Design program, and we've been fortunate enough to hang out with Tony Kanaan, the great driver, and KV Racing. Part of our tour here was the chance to go out onto the track and get a tech talk from James Sully Sullivan of SH Racing.
Fontana is 2 miles, considered a super speedway, which is also what Indy is considered, but since it's Indy, we leave super speedway out of it. This is the final round of our championship this year. So we've tested here as Mauser and a Little Fuse car twice, not as a team twice, but as a car twice. In this track, we have 9 degrees of banking. Basically what you're asking a car to do is to go 250 miles an hour, but without any help, from a G load or, from being able to plank on the track. It's flat, and you're asking it to go around without any skid and hit the wall. So from an engineering perspective, this becomes quite an intense puzzle piece. Both series, Formula One and IndyCar, have open wheels. If you're not familiar with Formula One is the highest elitist level of auto racing in the world. Up until this season, it has not raced in the United States in over 3 years. This year, as you guys may or may not know, they'll be racing in Austin at Circuit of the Americas. Formula One does not have fenders. It looks very similar to an Indy car. It's a little bit skinnier, it's a little bit longer, and primarily what you see over here in Indy car is individually owned teams, not by companies or entities, but by individuals or by partnerships, hence KV, SH, etc. Over there's very, very little individuals that own teams. It's OEMs, it's manufacturers, it's brands, in some cases it's banks, and it's not widely publicized, but there's actually bank-owned teams that, it takes so much money to run an F1 team. Now, to be competitive over there, you need about $400 million for one season. So if you put that into perspective, that's $10 million less than it costs to launch the space shuttle. And when you start to think of it that way, and you only have 150 employees on an F1 team, and you have 29,500 at NASA, and the budgets are about the same on a launch. So over there, they've just recently in the last few years begun to cap what is allowed and what's not allowed, just simply because the sport was on the verge of implosion. And when you get a bunch of really smart guys with unlimited budgets in a room, exciting things happen, but scary things happen. And that's what's happened in the last 5 years. You were beginning to see very exotic materials with engine blocks, stuff that you couldn't even dream up, you or I, but a very few select engineers in the world figured out. And the cost to compete just spun out of control. Ultimately, for this to make sense for Little Fuse and Mauser and all the rest, if no one watches, we can't sell sponsorship and the teams can't function. So at that level, as teams begin to drop out, if there are only 4 or 5 cars on the grid, nobody would attend, nobody would watch. So they're looking out for the future of the sport there. The similarities, as I said, are that they're open wheel, there's no fenders, they're not NASCARs, they're all carbon fiber for the most part. That's about where it stops. Overall, what you need to know is here, it costs us $7 million to run. There, it costs us $420 million to run. Cars are extremely quick there. They're 0 to 60 almost in a half second quicker than we are. They're down into like the 1.4, 1.3 range on 0 to 60, about 2 seconds on 0 to 100. We're 0 to 100 in about 2.5, in the 1.6, 1.8 range for 0 to 60, depending on what kind of gearing we have in.